Welcome back to the Alts Podcast. I'm your host, Horacio Ruiz. We bring you industry leaders and creators to give their insights on the rapidly changing and exciting world of alternative assets. Opinions expressed on this podcast by the host and podcast guests are for informational purposes only and should not be considered investment advice. Podcast hosts and guests may maintain positions in the offerings discussed in this podcast. The intro song, Fishing for Pets, is written and composed by Alan Goldshire from his latest release, Live at the Lakeview Lounge. All right, guys, so we're very fortunate here. We stumbled upon a company, a really cool company, AcquireInvest. We have the founder and CEO today, Brian Harstine. Thank you for being on the show today.
Yeah, thanks, man. It's great to be here. I've been reading a little bit of your newsletters, and it's really hyper aligned with what we're doing. So this is going to be fun.
Yeah, we were really excited, when we connected, and we're finding out what you guys are working on, and for sure, there's a lot of alignment there. Kind of want to talk about, Brian, what is AcquireInvest, your journey into developing the company, but I think we should start with that. Like, what is AcquireInvest, and what led you to develop it, and how is it different maybe from other investment platforms?
Yeah, I mean, look, we're a Web3 company. We're using cutting edge blockchain technology and decentralized compliance engines to bring securities to the retail investor, securities alternative placement, private placement investments. And I think right there, that tells you a lot of things that are very different from the current offerings you see out there. Not a lot of people are focusing purely on the tokenization of assets, let alone the tokenization of real world assets within a compliant structure. Utilizing blockchain to sort of leverage scale and open up access to this asset class for just the average person, also to accredited investors as well.
Yeah, so that's a really cool component of the company. You guys are going to tokenize these securities, and then basically what people are doing, what investors are going to do, is they're going to be buying a security that's going to be tokenized and put on a blockchain. What are the advantages of that? What leads you to believe that that's a route that maybe investors want to go in terms of being able to tokenize their investments?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. Over the last 10 years, you've seen just this explosion of retail investors just taking over, the movements of markets. I think the statistic that NASDAQ put out was 77% of the markets are owned by retail investors, which is staggering. And I think on the blockchain side, the growth of Web3, starting with Bitcoin back in 2010, it's now become kind of an inevitable thing. It's being used at the institutional level. People are looking to, transfer the literal dollar into, what they call a CBDC. It's kind of more commonplace than it has been over the last several years. And with the president kind of pushing out that executive order, which kind of put a hot button on what we're doing. He pushed regulators and some of the lawmakers to move faster. Push this technology to become more regulated, but also foster innovation at the same time. And I think that's brought a big focus here. And I think specifically around the private placement sector, we see a lot of potential to unlock lost costs. I think the statistic that we're finding most frequently is around 40% of, you can save about 40% on the life cycle management of the average asset that is tokenized just by purely automating functionality using blockchain technology, automating back office and middle office costs associated with, issuing and maintaining an offering out to, just accredited investors, let alone a scaled to retail investors. So
that's amazing. So basically, you're talking about, in some ways, disrupting that market in terms of the paperwork fees, right? Every time you get charged these fees just for management fees, things like that. You're saying that the tokenization can actually those savings can be carried over to the investors.
Yeah, I mean, well, management fees, those typically come with different types of financial products. Like, certain types of funds will have a management fee for just various functions that they do on the backside of those funds. But in terms of operating the fund, some of the costs associated with, for example, a dividend distribution, those can eat into the profits that you would have seen. But if the technology can automate some of that functionality and reduce the friction, right, reduce the middlemen and the rent seekers that sit in the middle of this transaction, you can see a pretty significant gain on the dollars that actually are collected to the dollars that you as an investor would receive. And that's just one instance where blockchain can, make the process more efficient.
So that's one aspect of Acquire. The other thing that was so cool to learn about is kind of the deals that you're having in place. You're kind of trying to allow retail investors to have access to investments that they normally wouldn't have access to. Could you speak a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, that's actually kind of the core of what we do. Our entire marketing campaign is all around access. Traditionally, private placement assets have been locked out from retail investment access. I think the accredited investor rule went in the, I think it was in the mid 80s, during a little bit of a crisis that was going on, and people are taking advantage of the average person. So the government steps in and says, here's a rule. This is designed to protect you. And yet over the last, 40, 50 years, we've seen it do a little bit of the opposite. It's created a bit of more of a wealth gap. We look at the portfolios of accredited ultra wealthy investors, and those are made up, almost 50% of just alternative investments and private placements. Wow. That's a staggering number, considering that the retail investor is locked out of that entire asset class.
Can you talk about some of the asset classes that you're looking at for Acquire in terms of like what kind of investments maybe might be different from what other investors currently have access to?
Yeah, so the alternative asset market is pretty broad. There's some companies, really cool companies out there that are doing some interesting things with like collectibles, like Masterworks or Really Road. And they aren't necessarily, some of them are tokenizing, some of them aren't. But another part of the alternative asset class isn't just, these collectible assets or blue chip art, as it were. We're looking at things like real world investment deals. Individual deals for, say, a building downtown, apartment building, going up in upstate New York. One of those might never hit a public market. It's a deal that typically gets taken down by banks, individual, family offices, or individual accredited investors, ultra wealthy individuals. And, what we're hoping to do is unlock deals like these real estate offerings, like individual movies, video game assets, fun things in the media entertainment space, cash flow deals, individual energy deals, everything from equity to cash flow type offerings. If it's an investment contract in the private placement space and it has a term of length, or, for example, equity is sort of until you have an exit, it's something we can tokenize. Right? We can tokenize it, turn it into what we call a smart share internally, and put it up on the platform. And if we file those things correctly with the SEC, say under Regulation A+, we can bring that to the public and have an unlimited number of consumer investors get access to the same deals that these ultra wealthy investors have access to currently.
Yeah, I think that targeting the retail investors is huge, right? That's really democratizing the investment space. You mentioned a little bit before about the entertainment industry, your interest in blockchain. I was wondering if you could talk about that. If you could talk a little bit about your history. What drove you to create a company like this? Like, where do you come up with these things? Where you're going to tokenize these securities. I imagine you have some interest in crypto.
Yeah, I mean, back in the day, we wrote a bunch of Medium articles, and put those out there. And, there's a little bit of the history, the idea of where Acquire came from. But back in the day when I was, doing some media investment management and shifted into doing personal investment management, basically due diligence for a bunch of different offerings that some wealthy individuals were putting money into at the time. I was trying to find businesses that they were putting money into and make sure that they were doing what they were doing properly, efficiently, and kind of just tracking the money, making sure it wasn't wasted.
Yeah.
And I was talking to these guys, and at the time this was 2015, and they were really interested in blockchain. This is 5 years after Bitcoin came up. It's the founding year of Ethereum, kind of when ICOs started. And they were really interested in that space. I personally had already been doing some Bitcoin mining kind of on the side, just for fun, nothing big, kind of tested it, sold it really fast, got back in, definitely didn't make money. I should have held it, like everybody says, but, made a little bit and got out. But these guys were really interested in blockchain. They wanted to push forward. And I kept saying, look, I'm helping you guys with investment management. I kind of understand the space a little bit. You probably don't want to go this ICO route. It's unregulated. And you may or may not get a call from a regulatory agency, like the SEC, for example. Mm-hmm. And yeah, sure enough, that's what happened by 2017. Over the course of working with them, I started asking the right questions and kind of found this gap. From, I guess, a unique perspective in what I was doing with them at the time. So, that was where the initial idea came from. And I met some guys in early 2017 that were building some compliance technology on the blockchain. And they've since built an incredible company called Securities. And we are utilizing some of their backend to, bring these assets to market within our platform. So it's been a fun process, and I've kind of touched every part of blockchain. I kind of sit in the world. I'm one of those DeFi guys that sits on his computer discussing weird things on Discord with a bunch of interesting people to understand how everything works. Yeah. And understand how we can utilize it to better the assets that we put onto the Acquire platform.
So people are going to be kind of interacting with a token, right? They're going to be interacting with the blockchain without really knowing it. In some ways, how important is that to where, that user experience is kind of what I'm getting at, is how important is it for people to feel comfortable being able to invest in a token without really kind of going, knee deep into the space?
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely incredibly important. It has to be something familiar to people. The second that you put something up that scares them, that they don't understand, it's fear, uncertainty, doubt, right? People just look at it and they go, I don't know if I understand this enough to invest in this class of asset or type of technology or through this technology into these assets. So you have to make it digestible. You have to make it something that, appeals to the lowest common denominator in the room. That's messaging 101. So the UX has to follow this, and we have to appeal to, pretty much everybody. This is a retail focused product. And, while it is utilizing blockchain technology, which is cutting edge, financial engineering, what we're doing is trying to make it accessible. And everything we do at Acquire is through this one lens, and that's, a user obsessed lens. What is the user going to do? How are they going to digest this? Do they understand if I put this word in this place? What is a token? So there's a lot of education and learning that happens throughout the app as a user experiences, investments, trades, discovering new offerings and new types of deals. Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of NBA Top Shot. And I don't know, where people are buying NFTs and they're just straight up using their, their credit card or whatever. And they have this, wallet online and they're interacting with the blockchain and the NFTs, but they don't even know it. And that was kind of one of what they give credit to for the NFTs, gaining popularity, is people at first didn't have to go through that whole, process of changing things between Coinbase and MetaMask, for example. The experience there was seamless, right? So it helped them kind of jump into the space.
Yeah, absolutely. It's got to be frictionless. I think when people get into an app, you want it to be as few steps as possible. Yeah. And you want them to be able to onboard and be able to purchase something with a currency they're familiar with. and hopefully over the course of this, they're able to, start integrating with the blockchain ecosystem because they realize what they're actually doing underneath the hood. Now, on the other hand, this appeals just as much to that prosumer, DeFi guy that wants to, dig in and invest with his Bitcoin or with his Ethereum into a real world asset. You can take those currencies and you can purchase, just like you would with US dollar, ownership in whatever the investment contract is that you're looking at. I think that's an incredible use case for anything, any cryptocurrency out there.
So it goes without saying that you've kind of put a lot of effort and energy into thinking about how people are going to be looking at your app, how people are going to be looking at your site when they are investing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That's where we started. We looked at it and said, there's a lot of people building a lot of incredible protocols. We're going to focus on more the smart contract layer, and we're going to focus on the UX. It's about not just the retail investor, but also the issuers that are looking to tokenize investments, that have funds or alternative investments, like some of the ones we talked about here, and give them a bridge into this world, a digestible, easy to understand bridge, even though it's a little complicated at times.
Sure, of course. I know we've talked about it. I know you've talked about what your guys are planning on offering. Can you give any insights into any opportunities that you've seen in the space? Not guaranteeing any returns or anything like that, but some emerging kind of markets that you see that might have potential down the road, maybe for when you guys have your platform live.
Oh man, yeah, we are super excited about the media and entertainment space to initially launch a handful of assets in that. Mm-hmm. It touches one of my backgrounds personally. So before I got into the whole investment management space, I had built a company in the media and entertainment space. We did packaging and development and production for TV and film. We had some small early, successes, and then we had some decent, packaging development sales to studios. And then, here we are building this app, and I look back and I go, these would be absolutely incredible assets to feature on the platform. So we really want to, offer the users two types of assets. Really, there are these fun, exciting, we call them the hot assets, right? Mm-hmm. The things that you go home and you'll turn on the TV and watch this TV show. You'll turn on the TV and play some video games. And those are things that you'll be able to invest in. On the other hand, we have this bread and butter. This is the stuff that's going to be not as hot. It's not as cool to talk about, but man, you can invest in it, and it's probably going to be pretty safe investment comparatively. And it's not going to give you that tingle, but right. It's definitely going to be, the thing that makes up probably the majority of your portfolio. Our goal at Acquire is to give a retail investor the ability to make up half of their entire portfolio with alternative investments, and then diversify their alternative investments across different types of assets like those.
Awesome. That's so we can look forward to seeing some media and entertainment. I don't think, opportunities. I think that's great. I haven't seen too much of that in the alternative asset space right now. Moving on, what stage are you guys in right now for Acquire? I know you guys are sort of in beta right now. You guys are planning some big things in a couple of weeks in terms of launching some stuff out. Could you talk a little bit more about that? Like what stage you're in, and in which stages you guys are planning to kind of unveil everything that you guys have? Yeah,
so we are, an early stage company. We're still in development. We're developing the beta now. We hope to have that launched for a certain set of users in late 2022. And then we're hoping to have the entire app launched in 2023 to the public. Now, there's something interesting there because we are planning to launch a public raise. We're going to drink our own Kool-Aid, tokenize our own shares, just like we're going to tokenize shares of any other investment offering, and offer those to users to invest in. We're going to start with a WeFunder campaign, which is very simple, non-tokenized. We're going to then offer security tokenization, where you can connect a digital wallet and invest directly with Ethereum. Now, if you want access to the beta before the public launch and access to the first flagship assets that we will launch in the future, stuff we can't talk about now, which hopefully will be late 2022, you have to be a participant in the offerings. We are going to offer an NFT that gives you access to the beta. That's kind of a really neat, first of its kind type NFT where, it links directly to the app and will give you access to get into the app where the public will not have access to that same beta. In the future, when the beta goes live, that NFT retains value and it will give you a discount on your trade fees. It will give you first looks at investments prior to launching on the public platform. And yeah, the beta access is going to be fun. You guys should definitely check that out. But yeah, that's kind of where we're at.
So with that NFT, that it's like an access pass, people will be able to invest in. They'll be the early investors at first.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, we'll have a Medium article going live that will kind of give you the tiers and at what point you will be able to qualify to claim an NFT. Now, we are not selling this NFT. This is not your typical NFT sale where you don't get anything. I mean, when you invest, you're getting equity in our company. You're getting the ability to claim an NFT, and that NFT has real value, cost reduction value. If you're a trader or if you want to sell this to a whale that does a lot of trading on the app, hopefully in the future, that's probably going to give them some real value. Yep.
So wow. So the more of the NFT that you own, the more kind of equity you might have in Acquire, and those benefits almost kind of accumulate with each other.
So there's two things, right? So if you invest, let's say, it's a 1-to-1 situation. So you'll invest, let's just call it $1,000 to make it easy. $1,000 will equal 1,000 of the Acquire token, right? And that token is it is a security token representing ownership in the underlying asset. The underlying asset being our company. The NFT is a separate piece, right? This is something that if you invest a certain number, right, and you're holding a certain number of tokens, then you're able to claim this NFT. The NFT then will give you that value, and you can link it to your account in our early access user dashboard, which we're hoping to have in June. And then late this year, you'll be able to link it to the actual app. And then when you start buying and selling and trading and interacting with the actual platform, you will be able to reap the benefits of the discount and sales and the early first looks on private investments.
So talking about the investments, do you see it being a fund? Are people going to be able to invest in a fund? Will they be able to invest in individual assets or both?
Yeah, it's going to be both. Anything that's a private alternative investment, will be something that we will consider tokenizing. Everything goes through a listing process, right? There's a curation process. They have to meet qualitative and quantitative, metrics in order to qualify to even be listed or tokenized. Once they do meet those standards, then we will proceed to tokenize and list them on the platform. And you'll see them in categories. We call it the market portal. You can go through and find individual offerings based on, say, energy or utilities or, debt or media and entertainment. So you click into that and you'll find individual offerings. Outside of that, we are going to have a section for funds. So one of our B2B, angles for the company is that we can take any fund, we can tokenize that fund, and then we can offer it through the platform so they can have a direct to consumer experience and open that fund to a much larger scalable level of LPs rather than, focusing on the typical, accredited only type investment relationships. And those funds reach beyond just traditional funds. We're looking at DAOs. We are a DeFi company and, looking at DAOs that file properly with the SEC and put up the proper structure. Those will also, they already are tokenized. And then we will put a security token layer on top of that, which carries that the information of the rules and regulation at which they filed and can enforce that live, whether someone can or cannot invest in said fund or DAO. And then, we'll list those on the platform too. So you could invest in, an NFT investment fund, DAO, right? The Decentralized Autonomous Organization, for those that don't know what we're talking about. And you can do it right in the app.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. It seems so. So now when you talk about those things, you kind of see the cases for building a fund on the blockchain. There are a lot of possibilities there. So as people are learning more about Acquire, what are some things that they could do to inform themselves a little bit better about kind of you talked about before, your mission, your kind of philosophy of, opening up investing for investors, retail investors. How can they track your progress, and what are some things that they could do to learn more about you guys?
Oh yeah, definitely. We're coming out of stealth mode, so we've just started releasing a lot of content. We've got some marketing teams; they're just spinning up, and it's pretty exciting to actually share all this with the public. We've got a Discord. You can find us there. There's a link directly from our website, which is AcquireInvest.com. Our blog is all Medium posts. We stay pretty focused, so we're focused on Twitter, Medium, and our Discord, which is just starting. It's going to be a place for not just people investing through Acquire, but anybody looking into alternative investments that want to talk about anything DeFi surrounding tokenized securities, blockchain-based assets. So it's going to be a hopefully an exciting place for people to be over the next couple of years as this asset class grows dramatically.
For sure. And how can they reach out to you, Brian? What could they reach you through? Social media, Twitter. What's the best place to kind of reach out to you?
Yeah, definitely. Twitter, AcquireInvests.com. There's an S at the end of that. And Brian Harstine, just BrianHarstine, and pop up on Twitter and let's have a chat.
That's awesome. We'll definitely be listing some of those links to your articles on the podcast channel. So if people are interested, they could hit those. Brian, best of luck, man. I know you guys are building something pretty cool. And yeah, I know you guys are going to do really well. We're gonna catch up in a couple months.
Awesome. Thanks, man. Looking forward to the next one.
Absolutely. Take care. Acquire will be unique for offerings that will include sectors like media and entertainment and biotechnology. Its use of the blockchain and giving access to retail investors that would normally be locked out of top-level private investments. We'll have Brian back on the podcast in a couple of weeks to discuss some of the legal frameworks around Acquire and developments around DAOs. If you enjoyed today's podcast, let others know about it. We find our guests so interesting and knowledgeable, and I know others will too. Or leave a review or hit the follow button. Until the next episode, take care.